Now it's time to create a stencil from the hand drawing we just drew together. So here I have a piece of plastic. It's a scrap piece of plastic from something that I had purchased online that I knew I would be able to use at a later date. And so that's what I do with my old pieces of plastic that I get in the mail from different things I've purchased. I just save them, knowing that I could just reuse them for many different purposes. And we're going to use this piece of plastic for our stencil. So once you have your drawing, like we have here, I just take my black marker or a pen. This is a fine liner pen, the same one we outlined our drawing with. I want to just trace right over on top of my plastic stencil using this pen and just trace that exact image on top of my plastic. So I'll have my simple image drawn on my plastic. It's a lot easier to use images that are more simple, like real simple designs with clear outlines for best results in creating your stencil. So that's why I like this particular design to share with you. It's very simple, easy, pretty symmetrical, and looks really pretty on the botanical Dutch pour dried paintings. You can incorporate those in so many different ways, and so that's why I want to share it with you today. So once you have your drawing, like I have here, I'm showing you with a white paper underneath because you couldn't see it with that black one. But as you can see, my image is now on my plastic. And now we can begin the process of using the stencil cutter, or I'm using an X-Acto knife to carefully cut out the areas of my drawing. And please be careful during this portion of it. If you are in fact going to create your own stencils, ensure that the areas that you're cutting with your sharp knife, that you're cutting in very smooth, clean, precise cuts. You don't want any jagged edges in your plastic materials. Otherwise, your design not only won't look right, but it'll tend to be pretty sharp if you're poking your fingers through the actual design. So be real careful with that portion of cutting out your design. You'll watch me trace directly over the outline of the design on the plastic using my X-Acto knife. Makes it really easy just to use it just like a pen and just trace over it to cut it. The surface that I'm cutting on is an actual cutting mat, and this makes it very easy for you to press down through the plastic to cut through the plastic. This cutting mat is a real nice surface area to have underneath. I highly recommend it if you are in fact going to be doing this type of process. They're not very expensive. I purchased it right off of Amazon. So you'll see me just diligently tracing over my drawing with the X-Acto knife exactly like I have my drawing on the piece of plastic. Pretty simple process, but you do in fact have to be very careful. I have my leaves connecting to my stem, but you can in fact make leaves that don't connect to your stem, and it's also a very nice look. So either look is really nice. If you have a stem going down your botanical, I recommend having the black stem in the middle, and on either side of the stem, use your knife to cut the slit, and then you can take out the entire stem so that there is in fact an open area for your paint to go down and actually paint that stem in there. So you can either cut around your leaves all at once, or you can do them individually and poke them out as you go. Either way is fine. Pretty easy process though. And while they do take some time and effort, the end result is really, really nice, and it's something that you'll be able to use over and over again, which is why I like to create different stencils for my artwork. Another fun little tip for creating your stencils, you can use the same stencil obviously over and over because it's plastic. Once you've painted on it, you can use a alcohol wipe and wipe off the plastic very nice and clean. But you can also reuse it as a double or a second stencil where you can flip it over and have your leaves angled in a different direction. If you have them angled, say your top leaf angled to the right, you can flip it over and now it's angled to the left. So it's almost like creating two stencils in one. That's another reason why I like the stencils. So I'll let you watch me just creating this stencil, working through the process. I'm picking out each individual leaf as I cut it. You can do that if you'd like, or you can just leave them in to the very end. Either way is fine. I like to see the progress as I go. There's so many different types of stencils that you can in fact create. You can create large ones, very small ones, in any kind. You can create flowers, leaves, little birds, anything you can think of you can create and reuse if you prefer not to paint. I like doing both. There's times that I just like to just paint my image on there, but with the process I'll be showing you later on in the video, you'll understand why we want to create these stencils to share with you and what we're going to be doing with these stencils to enhance your paintings that much more, and using a different medium to help make these leaves on your paintings more 3D. They will be standing off your painting like it's more of a 3D look when you're looking at your painting from the side. They'll be raised off your painting. So that's why I want to share this process with you, because using stencils and a gel medium to help lift and raise your image off your canvas, using stencils makes it so much nicer and quite easy actually. We're almost finished with this stencil. I hope you've liked this process. I hope you learned how to create your own stencils and think outside the box of, different types of plants you'd like to incorporate into your artwork, and just go ahead and start drawing those and see if you can't incorporate some of your own drawings as a stencil in your artwork, or be brave enough to paint right on your canvas. I encourage practicing painting on even scrap paper. Get your paintbrush out there and start practicing how to paint. If you're not already a painter and you're not familiar with how these brush strokes would create different leaf elements, just practice. Experiment. That's the fun of all of this, is experimenting, learning, and just having fun. So we're almost finished with this, guys, and we'll have our stencil ready so we can be able to paint this image and do a practice so you guys can see it. It looks like we're about there. I think this stencil looks really good. We have one more leaf to cut out, but I think it's looking really pretty. And then we're going to transfer this right on our scrap paper so you can see what it'll look like. I highly recommend that when you do create your stencils, lay it down on a piece of scrap paper and practice to see if the stencil is actually going to look the way you want it to look. And if you need to make any modifications to it, you can do it before you actually put it on your painting. All right, it looks like we're about there. The stencil really looks good. Now we're going to cut it out and make it more usable for us and more manageable, so we can use this to place on our painting when we want to, and you can play around with angling it on your painting. So this will really help us to ensure that you have the right angle, the right spot. You can play around with it before you're committed to putting your paint down on your canvas. Now let's practice to see what this stencil will look like. So now we're going to take the Arteza Pearl Lime Green straight from the tube, and we're just going to practice to see what this stencil will look like as we just paint right on our stencil. Let's see what these leaves will look like, and this will give us a great idea of what will look like on your painting. It's a really smart idea to do this on a scrap piece of paper like we are right now before we commit ourselves to putting it on our painting. Now, I love these stencils because you can just reuse them over and over again. It looks like it's working. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'd say it looks really good. Now let's just do one more. Grab just a little bit more paint. It takes no time whatsoever just to paint in there, and you can see I'm not taping down the stencil. I'm not being very perfect but the stencils, it really isn't moving on me, so I'm just pushing down with one hand and painting with the other. You can, in fact, tape it down if you prefer, but I'm just showing you quickly what you can do. And you'll want to take the stencil and wipe it off with a wet wipe, like an alcohol wipe or a baby wipe, just to clean that paint off. And then you can continue to reuse it over and over again. And there we have it. So here we are. I'm going to use this Arteza acrylic pearl lime green color to just quickly paint and demonstrate to see if this image is going to look good on our painting. So this is a great way to test to see if your stencil is going to look good. Are the leaves rounded enough? Do we need any modifications whatsoever to our stencil before we actually go forward with placing it on our painting? Just using the paint straight out of the tube. And then you just lift it up with ease, and there you have a beautiful little painted image of leaves. And we'll do one more just to show you real quick. You can just reuse the same stencil over and over. When you are finished with your stencil, you can then take that stencil, wash it off with a wet wipe, and then it's good to go. And there you have it, guys. A beautiful little botanical stencil. These look really good, really fun.